Hello, YouTube family. I'm so excited to share that I'm going to be uploading as a different show on my YouTube channel my podcast episodes that have been out for a while, because I know that some people on YouTube are not podcast listeners and some podcast listeners aren't YouTube watchers. And so I want to have these amazing conversations and episodes where you like them the most. And those of you who are YouTube lovers, if you do want this episode on the go, please go to the links in the description. And this episode you can download to your phone so that you can listen while you're driving in the car, doing dishes, working out, on Spotify, iTunes, and the different podcast platforms. This is the first episode I recorded for the podcast. It's very special and intimate and vulnerable and dear to my heart. So I'm very excited to have you experience it if you haven't heard it already. And I also wanted to share that my upcoming Ancestral Healing and Connection course live calls are starting again in October. And I'm talking a lot about ancestors in this episode. So if you feel called to it, I would love for you to be a part of the course and get started on it so that when the live calls and ceremonies and rituals for Samhain and for the thinning of the veil and everything coming up in October happens, that you're ready to engage and ask your questions and connect with me and others. So I invite you, if you feel the call, to check out that course. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the first episode of Wild and Awake. I am really, really excited to be here with you. Today we're going to be talking about lineage, legacy, and the law of one. This is a very deep transmission and remembrance that's been building and cultivating in me for over a decade now, and it's culminated into this moment to share with you in this way, to be the seed and anchor point of richness and depth for this podcast and the types of conversations I want to bring through here with other people, as well as the solo casts and conversations that I have with you, talking to you exclusively in your ear. And it feels so good to be communicating through this medium that is long form, where I don't just have 14 seconds to convey something significant, or even 14 minutes to only touch on a facet of a perspective that has so much more richness in letting it flow, letting it continue. And my prayer for this podcast is to be a refuge, a space of intimacy, a place of connection and deeper authenticity in how I share and what I bring through, how I connect with you, and how I connect with other people when I bring them on, and we have all kinds of dynamic conversations. So that is a little bit of the lay of the land of this digital format, and so much of this is about anchoring the light, rooting it, grounding it, embodying it. Because the deeper that we go with our feet in the earth and with our souls in our bodies and beings and expressions, the higher we can go to navigate through all of the amazing astral realms and through the stars that many of us love navigating. To begin this is very much so a transmission. So I recommend listening to it when you're meditating in a space of stillness or silence, when you're getting ready for bed or just waking up, in those in-between times where you really have the presence and more of the stillness and relaxation to really receive what is coming through here for you now. through me as a voice, but through your ancestors, through the lineages that carry so much wisdom for us right now on this planet, and from the earth, and from the stars and the moon and the lands that we so graciously get to walk upon as humans. Oh, what a gift, truly. So, moving into it, giving you a little bit of an overview, we're going to be sharing about DNA activation, the real sense, not just the, okay, this'll get some clicks, and the spiraling doorways through the 3 thresholds on the path to human oneness is what I've received over the years, and this is the moment that I get to share it. The first place I want to begin is in the forgetfulness, the disconnection, the depression that has come in Western cultures, in modern culture, as we as humans are floating above the ground, often not in our bodies and not connected to the earth, living in concrete jungles or in suburbia or whatnot, and might not even physically put our feet on the ground for a very long time. Now, why I'm talking about earth all of a sudden when I'm talking about ancestors is what we're seeking when many of us get this level of anxiety or depression or confusion or these strange energies that run through us is we're seeking our roots. And these roots are twofold. When we talk about roots, the image that might first come up is image of a tree and the roots going into the earth. The term is also used for roots of our ancestors, our ancestral roots. And there's a reason for this. Land and peoples are connected. When we go deeper into the earth, we remember more of our roots. When we go deeper into our ancestral roots, we remember our connection to earth. They were never disconnected, and that is what created the connection of the energy, the pulse of life, of inspiration, of intuition, of all the goodness to stream through us. We're often yearning and seeking this reconnection. And a lot of people are doing it nowadays through connecting with different tribal cultures, right? Here in America, connecting in with the Native Americans or some South American traditions. Often this seeking of reconnection leads us to these tribes. And that is in part because they're closer to that remembrance. They might just be 1 or 2 generations away from that connection, and there is still the transmission available to tap into. Some have not lost their connection. So this is a viable path to this reconnection. There's a reason why this inspiration comes up. One thing that we have forgotten is that no matter what peoples, no matter what color, no matter what culture we come from, we have all been connected at one point or another. Some of us, it might have been hundreds of years ago, and some, again, might have just been a generation ago. And so realizing that this reconnection exists within your own cultural stream, within your own genetic lineage, and just that recollection is huge. Really start to feel that. And in this moment, inquire into, what is my lineage? Where do my ancestors come from? Grandma said that I might have some Eastern European, or, oh yeah, I think I heard this story that I have some of this. So as we're having this conversation, recall and start to call on and in these ancestors of the lineage in which you came from in your genetics. Again, seeking through these other tribal cultures is a great avenue and can lead to that awakened remembrance of your own culture. And what I invite you to in this conversation is to remember your own peoples, whether they were all the different things, displaced through war, shipped from other continents, or had to flee and leave for various reasons to a new promised land, a new life. Many of our peoples, many of our cultures have left our motherlands. And this has changed things dramatically. And for those of you who haven't maybe left your motherland and you're in your cultural home of your genetic lineage, you might have a highway paved over the ley line that leads to Stonehenge. You might have a neighborhood and a little town inside the stone circle, Avebury, that your ancestors would go to for incredibly important communions and spiritual experiences. So even our own homelands, say if we're still there, have been changed and altered, but there is still always that access through time-space to tap into that which may have been forgotten or lost or disconnected. There is always access to those time spaces. So land and peoples were always connected. In England, they talked about how the king would actually marry the land. And the pharaohs of Egypt were the pharaohs because they could bring the rain. This was literal. There was such an intimate connection between land and peoples consciously. And today there still is. But our consciousness is creating tornadoes and hurricanes, where in those times we could weave with nature. And because we were so genetically intertwined with our land spaces, just think about it. The women would bleed every month onto those lands, which would nourish the soils, connect our communication with the lands, nourish and return that guidance, that trust, that communication. Our placentas were buried there, connecting us, registering us with these territories and lands. The bones, which continue to vibrate after death, of our ancestors were buried often on sacred sites, enhanced earth sites, that then became, in the native term, song lines. These magical spaces where the amplification of these bones or these ceremonies of remembrance of who we are were placed in the land, placed in the crystals. And we became the mountains, and the mountains became us. And I feel this very deeply because the mountains are my ancestors, particularly in this territory called Utah, the Ute natives. And I hear them, and they guide me and communicate with me and talk to me and whisper. And sometimes they communicate very loudly, like thunder. And that is obvious as well. So this intertwined rhythmic communication to who is the ancestor? Is it the mountain? Was it the bones of great grandma? It all became one. And the pulse and the call and the listening was always accessible. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. Maybe with my life or in this moment, with this relationship, how to move forward. And we would go to these places in nature and remember the seedings that our ancestors left for us to stay on course, to stay on track, to remind us that we are always, always supported. And now you might live on the other side of the planet. And the amazing thing is there is still that pulse, if you just tune into it, that will communicate to you that land space, your ancestors, It doesn't require you to physically be on it, but that requires an extra bit of attention and stillness and inquiry and curiosity for that stream to come through. It also is accessible, which I'll share in some of these upcoming personal experiences that I'm going to relay, that you can go to other people's lands that were used for these purposes with permission and pure intent and retrieve your own ancestral memory. So there are many ways that this can be done. The idea is just to realize how far we've gone, that we can go, yeah, I'm just going to move to the other side of the country. Next year I might be on the other side of the planet the following year. And there's something amazing about that, where we can tap into, and I have tapped into many different places on the planet, and that gives another kind of encodement, another kind of remembrance, which we'll get to when we're talking and returning to that space of oneness. So that is an incredible transmission to get as well. But just to realize that we are just these humans in concrete boxes in cities nowadays, and that pulse, that communication, that support, trying to get through to us, just needs some extra attention, which is what we're doing right now in this conversation. So, each land informs its peoples. And the peoples inform the land. Interconnectedness. We see this so beautifully through the look of different people. I remember in my late teens going to an amazing spa in Los Angeles, and it was the first time that I had seen a bunch of naked women, and it was the first time that I had seen an absolute diversity of naked women. All different ages, all different colors, all different sizes and shapes. Hair that was frizzy or smooth, all the things. And it was miraculous. It felt so good for each expression of human to exist. And as I was with all these different women, I could honor myself and honor my form and the lineage I represent all the better. It made me realize my place through this radiant contrast. And so we see this in the uniqueness. We see the Scandinavians with their blue eyes, blue as snow, their blonde hair and all the things, and these blue eyes to see vast landscapes, to see the big picture. And then we see the incredible chocolate, beautiful richness of, say, the African peoples, and these dark, dark eyes created to see close up in jungles. And each of us, each peoples, each cultures has a particular purpose. And the purpose was connected to the land, and there's a purpose beyond it as well that influences everything about it. Influences the songs, influences the art, influences the language, influences the dress, the architecture, every single thing about it. I've gotten to travel a lot, and it is miraculous and such a gift. And going between countries that were maybe only an hour apart by train, say in Europe, and seeing the vast difference in the language, the architecture, all the different things, and going, wow, this is so different. Then flying to the other side of the planet in Southeast Asia and going, I am on a different planet. Each of them are so unique. So the reason that I'm talking about this and how this then ties in to this remembrance and a deeper aspect of maybe some of what you've been looking for is the energy and the profundity of what is called the tribal soul, also known as the folk soul, or what Steiner said is the volksgeist in German. And this is the healed, pure, all-encompassing transmission of your culture. Many of us now are Mots, and we have many different lineages running through us. And I personally find that beautiful. And to have one dominant, pulsing, is also incredible. So each of the different lineages that make us up, for me, it's Irish, Scottish, English, German, and Native American. And each of them have a different volksgeist, different tribal soul. And this tribal soul is the healed energy, again, of your lineage. Now, the reason why this lineage conversation, this ancestral conversation, is not often talked about is because it's something that we've forgotten because of the disconnection and not continued in modern day culture, especially Western culture. There are many cultures around the world, such as the Mexican culture and the Japanese culture, that Chinese culture, absolutely honor their ancestors. They remember the necessity, at least in part, as to why it is critical to go down this path of remembrance. And in part, that is because what is not acknowledged within the lineage will perpetuate in future generations, which means any wartime, any trauma, any murder, any famine, any displacement, any little thing that your ancestors experienced, most of them were involved in World War II. For instance, just our grandparents. I'm 33, so don't know who's listening to this. So it's very close, these traumas. And what isn't talked about, what isn't acknowledged, what isn't continued to be kept in the light festers. And it manifests negatively, and it continues to perpetuate the negativity in part on Earth. It is a huge, huge thing. When COVID hit in last year, in 2020, it was evident to me that this conversation is one of the most important conversations because it is one of the reasons why we keep on replaying the past. Because we don't actually see what happened, or it gets hidden, or, I don't necessarily need to tell my nephew or tell my children about, Grandpa in World War II. Like, who cares? Just those stories just fade away, and they don't seem significant. But they are. They're a part of our genetics. The PTSD of our grandparents, actually in the second generation, is even worse. We carry on that PTSD that exaggerates, actually, over time. So it's highly significant, these pieces of trauma. Now, the trauma is like crap in the pipe that's clogging it up. This pipe, this flow, this transmission of what I started with, of this love, this remembrance, the guidance, the support, the vitality, all of those things that want to pulse through you so deeply. From your back, from behind, that energy of I've got your back. You are supported. You are taken care of. You are guided. All that viscerality in your being, in your energetic field, comes through this stream. Let's go with stream rather than pipe. I want to move us away from cities. So in this stream, and it is clogged up and cluttered with all kinds of crap. And this crap is the trauma. And this crap are the stories that have been forgotten. And that which hasn't been acknowledged, which then becomes enmeshed with our own lives, and we play it out. And it's huge. It completely infiltrates our relationships, our finances, and, like I said, the world at large and the decisions we're making. So the work that I've talked about a lot, if you're familiar with my YouTube channel, and I have lots of videos over there talking about this particular subject of how to clean the stream, and I also have a course on it as well on my website. This is a key piece to then let this stream of what I'm going to get into now, these advanced layers that most people don't get to because they don't clear this stream, and so that they're stuck in the stickiness of the situation. So I recommend going and doing some due diligence in those categories and going down those pathways so that you can access the advanced level of what I am about to share. So, as you clean the stream, as you acknowledge, as you remember, as you continue to tell the stories, even if they don't seem relevant, even if they make you feel ashamed of your past or your ancestors, once you do this and this starts moving and you're no longer enmeshed, this flow begins. And up that stream are the ancestors that don't have a bunch of crap, are what my friend John Michael coined the shining ones in your ancestry. It may be a woman who was completely in her power, in her expression, in her wildness, in her receptivity, in her intuition, in all the things that might be 20 generations back, okay? Might be 50 generations back, but the shining ones are there, and they are so here for you. They are doing their utmost to communicate with you and to let you know that you are a part of something great and that you have a purpose in the form, in the culture, in the way that you came into this earth. A wonderful quote by my friend Dan Winter, who I was listening to on YouTube today, said, "Your life is the direction in the wind of the yearning of your ancestors at the time of their death or at your birth." I'm going to say this one more time. Your life is the direction in the wind of the yearning of your ancestors at their death or at your birth. We are so interconnected with our ancestors, and we forgot that we are. And it's a point of power and all the other things I've been saying that we've forgotten. We know that this amazing current of spirit comes in through our crown, our guides, our angels, the universe, all of this angelic celestial energy, yummy, coming through that crown chakra. We know that. We know, even if we don't do it, that when we put our bare feet on the earth and we start to connect with it, there's so much there, and our nervous system relaxes, our immune system boosts, all the things. We know these different parts and these different streams that we can tap into. But this one, again, because of the cluttered river, has been forgotten. So the first place to begin when asking and inviting, which is a key part, this permission is so key. This invitation is necessary for bright beings and ancestors to connect with you, because the bright ones operate on free will, and they require that to begin to permeate and infiltrate in a very positive way your dreams and your life. So going back and finding those ancestors that had that thing, so that thing that you're looking for in your life, you're like, dang it, I just don't have the confidence when it comes to blank. I don't know what this feeling of abundance would feel like in me. I don't have that. These ancestors exist that did have that. There is someone in your lineage that does have that. And these are the shining ones, and you can tap into them and you can call upon them for guidance, and they will give you the transmission of whatever that healed version of that aspect of your personality, of your being, of your life that you need. It's there. I came into this life completely shut down in my throat, completely shut down in my womb, and I was petrified of speaking. Petrified. Oh my God. I had to clear that trauma of the trauma that came from my suppressed female ancestors that had been shut down for generations and told to shut up and raped and all the stuff that happens. And through this work, I'm talking to you now, and I feel really good about it. So whatever it is in your life, there is a shining one that exists for you to tap into that holds the encodement in your genetics, which I go into this in my other videos, but just briefly, this energetic template of morphogenetics, the energetic field in which you exist in, is created from your genetics. So it's really important to get this imprint of the healed field, the healed energetic template of how you exist around in the world. Because sometimes it's not necessarily the place or purpose of an angel or the earth or these different support systems to do that for you. This is the purpose of these ancestors, to give you these healed energetic templates of what juicy, connected, intimate, beautiful, positive relationships can be. What amazing attunement to your purpose, to your expression, and how to share that with the world can be. There's many of these things that is the purpose of the ancestors, and it's not necessarily the purpose of the spirit guides. So again, tuning into these shining ones. Now we're going to go into these deeper layers. So beyond the shining ones, the holders, now you have a better context of what I'm talking about. The space holders of the healed, pure transmission of your selective lineage, whichever one you're working with. Beyond, going back, past the shining ones, past the ones that had all kinds of trauma happen, is the tribal soul, is the folk soul. And this is the first threshold back to humanity's path to oneness. This is the collective. This is the first collective imprint. We're talking mini collectives, right? We're talking about maybe a country's cultural volksgeist. Or maybe a religious group can also have volksgeist, right? Like the Jewish volksgeist exists. The Mormon volksgeist exists. Right? So there's also volksgeist for different cultural and religious groups as well. But specifically talking about a specific country, for instance's cultural lineage, has this volksgeist. And the volksgeist is an archangel. Okay. We just tapped back into the higher realms. I hope you're excited. So each of us have our own personal guardian angels. And individual angels are for individual people. When you go up the next tier in frequency, in template, you then reach a collective, which then is presided over by an archangel. Now, you can actually be in contact with these archangels. And I'm not just talking about the woo-woo, like Archangel Michael's with me all the time helping me. I'm talking, you can be in full communion with these archangels, with the tribal soul volksgeist of your culture, of your lineage. And this is really now what I'm wanting to get into. This is the juicy bit. You made it this far with me, and now you get some really exciting stories. It's story time. And I want to share because, again, I think it's really important because we don't have a lot of templates to tap into of what this is even like. So it feels important to share and to transmit so you can begin to tap into it too. I know you're already feeling it. Feeling this portal opening. The first doorway of the 3 was to just open the doors to the ancestors. Hello, you exist. You totally have a huge influence on my life. And then walking through that pathway to the second doorway, which is the communion and the syncing of the energy with the tribal volksgeist. So in this place, once you realize this is like penetrating spiritual realms that most humans never access. And when we think of ancestors and when we think of tribal peoples, not in a derogatory term, but there is the colonized imprint of primitive as meaning uncivilized. Who wants to be civilized at this point? But uncivilized or barbaric, or they don't know anything. They're just kind of using stone tools. And what I really want to invite with this first story is the absolute advanced technology of the ancestors. And so to not discount them as, well, they didn't know much, however far you go back, right? Of course, thousands of years ago, you're like, they didn't know much. Except if you go 12,000, 20,000, 30,000, they know stuff. We're still here. So in this first story of a tribal volksgeist that I came into contact with, and I don't say this lightly, I've only had maybe a half dozen encounters with these really high beings and collective thresholds over a decade after doing tons of work. So this is not something to expect overnight, nor is it something that I'm just flippantly saying that, say, happens all the time or I'm making up. It is a real experience, and take it for what you will and use what feels resonant to you. So now I'll share. So the idea is that these ancestors are very, again, intertwined with the land spaces in which they inhabited. They embed themselves. They're interconnected so that they can continue to support, again, and guide and pulse us in these future generations. Many of us have forgotten how to access this, especially when we go to land spaces. Now, the key is that these ancestors, I'm talking general ancestors now. I'm not necessarily talking about your specific ones. We're speaking generally. These ancestors are looking for pure intention, as well as the nature as well. It wants to commune with you. They want to commune with you. They want to be able to stream through you, because we as humans have this amazing ability to be, as Dan Winter says, shareable waves, which means coherent and conductive of very powerful energies, especially when we're in alignment and in congruency in so many ways that I will be sharing in future episodes. And so when we have this pure intention, and when we have the capacity to be a conduit, a vessel of this energy, the land and ancestors cheer. The land and ancestors are so happy and so excited. And in this space, they don't differentiate between culture and color and race, because they went, dang, you made it. Okay, you're aware of me. I'm aware of you. You made it past this threshold. All right, I'll help whoever I can at this point. That is what I truly feel. You showed up and you have a pure heart and you want to be of service. Okay, I'm here for you. I will teach you, because you are my child too. You are my granddaughter. You are my grandson. It doesn't matter. And so I preface that with complete humility in saying that I've spent and lived for a bit on the Hawaiian Islands and on Maui specifically, and it is so dear to my heart. And I understand that I am white, and I understand that I am from the descents that I already told you. And I go in reverence to nature, and the last time I was there, I was drawn to, I've been to this place dozens of times, this sacred valley, and it is one of the dearest places to me on the planet. And I had shared it with a group of women that I took on a retreat, and we had a very special ceremony. And quite a few of the women corroborated that they felt a presence of ancestors there with us, supporting us. And so after the retreat was complete, I went back to this space, and I just was guided to this place I had never walked. And in that place, there was a petroglyph, an ancient petroglyph. And it is the petroglyph of the Rainbow Warrior. And the Rainbow Warrior is a story from the Hawaiian lineage as well as the Native American lineages, talking about the future generations, the future beings of light that remember who they are and come into true coherence with all of the aspects of themselves. The full rainbow, right? The full spectrum of their chakras in alignment. In the story, it's talked as the Rainbow Warrior. The singular Rainbow Warrior will come back and help Earth, help humanity in a time of need. And the Rainbow Warrior, it's important to understand that from that perspective, from their perspective, of what I was receiving in this guidance, as I touched with honor this sacred stone, it was transmitted that the Rainbow Warrior is all of us. They're holding it from a space of a collective energy, right? To them, they don't differentiate between individuality and collective because they're coming from that higher point of view, from that higher vibrational, cohesive perspective. And so I sat there and I cried and I felt the guidance and the ancestors, and it was so, so strong. And even when I got back to Sedona, they came back to me, even not being in that physical location, and continued to transmit through me until I shared. And so I shared a post on another platform, and then it was sufficient. And I've had this happen several times in different situations with different groupings and different land spaces and mountains. And the point is that when you get to the point of the volksgeist, when you get to the point of remembering your own cultural imprint and purpose, you then pass that level. You pass that level and you pass that threshold, which then shoots you into another category in which the tribal councils of the planet exist. And from that level of consciousness, again, they don't care where you're from, because at that level, they remember, they know that you are all one, and that whatever daughter, whatever son is coming forward to be of service with pure intention, they will transmit through, and they will give guidance to. And at this place, you will have arrived at the seat of the spiritual grandfathers and spiritual grandmothers of humanity, of the return point of the genetic one of humans. And in that space, at that table, all are represented, all are one. And again, that which each represent is absolutely celebrated as one color, one facet of the crystalline, magical nature of the human race. So that is the threefold threshold on the path to oneness for humanity. Moving back through the genetics. The next layer is going back to the galactic genetics of the stars. And reconnecting with that, which is a whole amazing thing that we'll go into in another story. So I share that experience on Maui. And now I want to share two more stories with you to also highlight that these communications can come through in different ways. Again, we talked about the invitation for this communication to take place. That's very important with your true heart's prayer to remember what could be called the law of your lineage, that beautiful nature of your peoples and the purpose of your peoples, the purpose of you as one of their expressions. And that, of course, the cleaning of the stream and the trauma release is a critical aspect to this whole story, to be able to access the clean stream behind it of the shining ones who are the most easily accessible. Whereas the tribal soul is something quite beyond. That might take a little bit of time, but there's a carrot there for you to stream back to. And then going to that next level, once you get to the tribal soul and you remember through all of your lineages to the place where you're at the council table of humanity, of the full spectrum of the rainbow. So the next story, taking place at the Bosnian pyramids on the summer solstice. As I mentioned earlier, going to land spaces of other peoples with absolute permission. Always ask permission. And sometimes it is a no. So you really want to ask permission. But going to other people's cultivated sacred sites or sacred sites of nature, right? Different vortexes and chakra points and ley lines that naturally have a high pulsing, implosive vibration for these communications to take place also really works. So, of course, you heard my first one on Maui, and an incredibly vital place in nature with sacred stones. And now we're moving to Bosnia on the other side of the planet to talk about, the Bosnian pyramids that were built over 20,000 years old. I think it's close to 28,000 years old at a minimum. And the Bosnian pyramids were a stargate. And there's runes, ancient runes that talk about that there, and it is incredible. And the pathways and tunnels that were created there under the pyramids, that's not talked about, by the way, a lot. We talk about the ancient pyramids and going inside the pyramid, but what about the tunnels underneath? So I just want to plant that seed. But the tunnels underneath are the primary of the Bosnian pyramids and have some of the highest oxygen content on the planet. So, and are very conductive and incredible. And I got to spend a week in these tunnels. And I actually had kind of bronchial, deep seated cold and cough from when I was a kid that would sometimes pop up over the years. Being there for a week completely healed it. It was pretty amazing. Moving back into the subject we were talking about, I was there, open heart, no expectations. This is always key. You can have zero expectations. You only can have an open heart and pure intention to be of service and to be a vessel of the divine, of oneness, of whatever is needed for the highest good, however you look at that. So I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, this is summer solstice, Bosnian pyramids, ancient site. Maybe something's going to happen, but I immediately nix that from my mind and heart because that's going to be your block. It's going to be your block if you have expectations. But I sat down with my former partner and we meditated and it started. One of the most profound experiences of my life, and the spiral nature of my genetics came in like a force of nothing I've ever felt before, through my back, through the back of my heart, spiraling through. And I have, of course, felt the support from behind where this ancestral energy streams in, but never this way. This was the activation of my genetics and this pure stream fully able to flow through. And as it flowed through, it went through my heart and extended beyond me. Because what is beyond me? Beyond me is my legacy. Hopefully, eventually, the children that I have that will then become the 7 generations. And I and you will be their ancestor. And you will be their shining one. There for them, reminding them, encouraging them, pulsing and transmitting the templates of what is pure, what is aligned, what is for the best interest of all the things. So it went beyond my heart, and I was hysterically crying, as I usually do in these situations. My emotional body really moves, for hours. And actually after, I forgot about this till this moment, this giant being of light came into me, not in a possession way, in a completely, it was an incredible being. It came through me, and I did healing work on my partner. It was crazy. I was like 15 feet tall. I was a giant. So these overlays can happen. And when I know that discernment of what is allowed and not allowed. But just to say that in some of these experiences, really high, powerful beings of light aligned with the middle path can come through. And that is another level of activation. To have those imprints coalesced within your being. So that is another experience that I had. Again, after that was 2 years ago, and that experience happened before the Maui experience, which I think opened the gateway, opened the communication for that other experience to happen. And that happened after 8 years of this work. So it's not something necessarily that will happen overnight, but one thing that is definitely true is that it's that 100th monkey effect. When there is a template to tune into, you can get there so much faster. This is how we are going to change the planet. And when something is aligned with positivity and cohesive, it's accelerative. And so in this moment, that's why I'm recording this for you right now, is so that you can get there faster. You can, and not that fast means something. I'll go back to that in a second. But you don't have to go through necessarily all the trials and all the things that I had to go through, years and years and years of it. You can just tap right in and go for it. And that's another thing that I wanted to say about the wisdom of the ancestors, particularly in the Hawaii experience, better say that correctly, is that their technology, how they were able to traverse time-space, I know that they knew that I would be there in that moment in the future. It's not like they were dead spirits sitting there in the rock like, oh, hey, let me help you. They were transmitting through time-space from that moment where they were there. In some cases, it is the case that pulsing vibration template is, in the bones, in the burial site, on the song line. Yes, that does happen too. But in this case, I felt the technology of it. I felt the advanced nature of that clairvoyance through time-space to sync with me in that future time-space, that future timeline. And these are some of the many tools that not only can they help you in your modern needs, but their ancient prowess is something to behold. The intuition, the communication, the technology with nature. I mean, these dudes could stop earthquakes, could steer tornadoes, could direct stars. Have you directed the plasma of a star lately? This is something really rich and potent to tune into, and it's very powerful. So I don't often like saying those things or even telling these stories. I haven't told these stories publicly because, one, the ego and the tainted, weird black magician archetype can start, wreaking havoc and be like, oh, perfect, this is what I was looking for. It's like, no, that's not what we're trying to do here. The magic, the potency, and the power for positive use is necessary right now on the planet. It is required. So if you can get to the level, which only is you can only gain access through pure heart and intention. So that eliminates all of that, tainted subconscious motivation, is really valuable right now and will save the planet and humanity. So don't overlook it and know that you have the direct path. Now, I laid out the path for you and the template path for you, and there is a path for you to access this yourself. All different genetics have such amazing offerings and gifts. They're so unique. It might not be the way that it came through for me. I know that part of the law of my lineage, the power of my volksgeist, is some of this intuitive clairvoyance and particular communication with land. I'm from the British Isles, for heaven's sakes. I'm from the lineage of the Druids. That's what we do, and many other cultures around the world do it too. But that is a part of, say, my skill set that has come through in remembrance and other lifetimes as well, which I do feel that these ancestors also recognize the other lifetimes that you've had as a scanning device, as well as nature very much so recognizes in your aura. It can scan you of how you have been with nature before. So even going to a land space that you've never been to before, it will trust you because it can feel it in your aura and your heart's intention. We're just going to say that a million times today. Okay, so that's what I wanted to share about Bosnia. And obviously sacred sites and the land spaces are opening up a lot. It's opening up a lot for me. Dream time. There's so much that comes through in dream time. I've had lots of experiences. That's going to be the next one I share. Inspiration. Many different ways that these can communicate through you. It's really important to tap into your clairs, to know how spirit communicates with you. And I assume that you do at this point. And if you don't, go to my YouTube channel or continue to listen to this podcast, because I will share many different ways for you to do that. So it's going to look unique to you. And that is the point, because you are so super unique. And the more that you acknowledge and really relish your uniqueness, the more that everything is going to open up. And you can move through these thresholds with grace and align with the truest, highest version of yourself to be of service to the planet and humanity and your peoples, which is all peoples right now, which I think is very important to say with everything that's going on in different cultural conversations. It's creating more segregation amongst peoples, and I'm done with that. Just going to say that. I'm done with that. I understand that other people aren't. I'm offering an invitation to go beyond that and to go to this space of oneness, and how that actually translates into your everyday life and your interaction with other people. This will help it. Clearing those ancestral traumas of different cultural prejudices and issues, whether you're on the side of being guilty for what you did or being on the side of being the victim, perpetrator. This will help all of that, and less of that will reflect in your physical reality and life. It's very important. We're creating new templates here. Okay, so moving into dream time. So moving along on this timeline, this was a pretty potent year for me, I guess. It was the year before 2019, something like that. So in this timing, the next thing that I did is I went to the Tucson Gem Show. And I went really just to be with the crystals. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's an amazing, really big gem show. And I went to be with the stone beings because so many are taken and extracted out from Earth now. And that's a whole sub-conversation that we'll have on this. I'm actually going to have a podcast on crystals here in the next couple months. So stay tuned for that. Nonetheless, I was there at the gem show, and I was inspired to get a incredible piece, an obelisk lapis lazuli from one of the incredible mines in Pakistan. And I understand some of the other things going on with lapis lazuli in Pakistan. The point is, that's what I was inspired to get, and I instantly had a bond with this stone. So about 2 or 3 nights in, I think it was 3 nights. Let's just say it was 3 nights, because that makes it really exciting. It might have been 2. 3 nights in with this lapis, I fell asleep, and it became a communication telephone device, which stones are with different higher spiritual beings. Another conversation. It became a communication device between me and the volksgeist of the Middle East. Probably specifically Pakistan, but the Middle East. And I communed with the archangel in my dreams. It was incredible. And it's so interesting because every volksgeist is so unique. And there was a fierceness and a real power to this one, as you would imagine. And the reason why I knew that it was really that being, which is another conversation. Oh my gosh, there's just so many open loops and new subjects that I'll have to talk about with you on this podcast. The reason why I knew that it was the actual being is because its eyes were red. And that's one of the ways that you know from the Toltec tradition that it is the actual person, or it is the actual being. And that was one of the first times. I've only had a couple of times in my life where I've dreamt of a being or a person with red eyes. And I immediately knew that because of my Toltec training. And I went, oh my God, it's the real being. And I knew that it was the volksgeist. The energy was off the charts. And So amazing. So one of my areas of study is art history, and the way that Allah or God in Islam is represented is never in a physical human form like Christianity, like the God with the white beard. In that culture, the imprint of God is always depicted in geometries. And really, they would never even necessarily say that. They would say, we don't depict God. Yeah, right. Like, we're going to try and do that. But they represent the essence of the divine and of the God nature through mosaics. And as I looked into this archangel's, this volksgeist's eyes, it was this incredible mosaic pattern. It was blasting red, and my third eye is pulsing right now. Oh my gosh, I feel this being right now with me. And it was profound. And there was communication there that was affirming and powerful and very humbling and activating. Golly, in this moment, jeez, invoked that energy. And that energy, that communication came through a stone. So we have a lot of different pathways laid out here that I've shared to access these thresholds that a lot of humans don't get to, or at least cultured, westernized humans don't get to. And it became very clear to me. Oh my gosh, the guidance and energy is so strong. I'm sure you felt it in this recording from the ancestors, from these volksgeists, from the land, from your soul, from all of the ancestors that came before you that care about you so much, and the ones that need to be seen and acknowledged to be released and be free, to free you and the future generations. All of that was very guided for this to be the first episode of my podcast. This is what wanted to come through. And it feels like a seeding. It feels like an honoring of who we are as humans, and puts into context how we can reconnect with Earth and listen to her and serve her in a new and very old, ideally ancient way. So tune into them, breathe with them, feel their support, align with the magic gifts that you hold within you, that you hold within your genetics, that you hold within the cultural group that you were born into. Honor it, cherish it, awaken it, remember it. That's what's wanting to be shared. My prayer is that this information, that these stories, that the transmission reminds you how powerful you are, especially at this time, and how needed and necessary your uniqueness is, and aligning and stepping in to your purpose. And aligning, that's a key one, aligning, that will emanate what is needed on the planet. So there it is. I really, really appreciate you being here, and especially if you've listened all the way till now. That is so exciting to me because I come from the land of YouTube. In the land of YouTube, it's challenging to get people to, have an attention span past 10 minutes. So that's really what I'm wanting to cultivate and encourage is depth, is intimacy, is that which requires more than brevity to share, to unpack, to download, right? So I really appreciate you being here. Not all of the podcasts will be like this. I'm going to be doing solo casts like this more and more. And the inspiration came actually after right as COVID hit, because I wanted to communicate in a different way, in a way that was more intimate. As you can see, intimacy and connection, I'm really into and want to encourage, because that creates communion. I'll be creating more solo casts similar to this. Some of them will be deep and rich, connected to the earth, some to the stars, some to very practical, day-to-day things that can help you in your life. And I'll be having really deep conversations with some people and very light conversations with people. So thank you for being a part of this journey with me and this seeding of this medium of communication. Let's close up this container of the ancestors and just tuning in to yourself, tuning in to any shifts in your body that may have come up as you listen to this. Maybe areas have more energy. Maybe new energies have woken up. Maybe there's more tightness actually coming up to release in certain areas. So just tuning into your body, and then tuning into your spirit, your heart, your soul, and recalling, like when you wake up from dreamland, replaying any inspiration or particular insights that came to you, ideally writing them down. Because just like with dreams, these openings to the higher dimensions often float away on the wind quite easily. So capturing anything that came through for you and anchoring it into your heart, anchoring it deep into your being, so that this isn't just something ephemeral that you listen to, but it's something that you integrate and opens curiosity to explore more in whatever way that means for you. Whether that's deeper listening, the invitation, paying attention more to your dreams, actually going into, ancestral trauma release, invoking the volksgeist of your lineages, maybe exploring your ancestry, whatever it is, going out onto the land, nature. Tune into an action step that you can take intention to continue to direct, attune your energy, your awareness, your consciousness to this stream of support that we went into quite deep today. So there you have it. What's in your body? What's in your heart? And how can you integrate this, move forward? I'm really into that. I'm really into utilizing that which we listen to or we hear, and then sharing it and passing it on in a way that filters through our unique expression. Thank you so much for being here, listening to this as well as on Earth. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for listening to this Wild and Awake with Bridget Nielsen podcast episode. I'm so grateful to have you here on YouTube. If you are here on YouTube and want to continue hearing amazing content, please click that subscribe button, the like button, and comment and share what your favorite moments of this episode were. And also, be sure to check the links out in the description for the Wild and Awake podcast. Go check it out. Go subscribe. Download your favorite episodes so that you have them on the go on your phone. There's over 20, as I'm recording this audio right now, episodes for you to go listen to that aren't here on YouTube. So go check it out and have that as well as amazing inspiration and content for you to listen to anytime. Wishing you all the best, sending you so much love, and see you soon.